So I'd like you to imagine that you have unlimited ability to do whatever you want. So you're basically God, and you're able to make the world as perfect as you would like. You can make a utopia, everyone's happy. You can take a second to imagine what that would look like in the world. We don't have this power to make a perfect world, but we do have the power to improve the world as much as we can. And the reason why I wanted you to think about the God example is because just because we don't have unlimited power doesn't mean we don't want to still make the world as good as possible. So we do have the ability to influence things. And so we want to try and move this needle from this kind of horrible world on the left to this perfect utopia on the right. We want to move it as much as we can, as opposed to just moving it a little bit. That's kind of the main principle of effective altruism. So I'll talk about what it is. I'll talk about the tools of effective altruism, kind of how we reason, how we think about these things. I'll talk about what's being done by people in the community, and then I'll talk about what we're going to do in St Andrews going forward. So as I've said, people in the effective altruism community want to answer the question of how we can do the most good, and then do that. So this is kind of like a two-pronged approach. We have a group of people who are working out what the best thing to do is. And these might be philosophers, they might be economists, they might be medics, any kind of profession you think of. And then we have a group of people who are doing the action part of that. So there are lots of kind of terrible things in the world that happen. And we want to solve these as much as we can. I feel like everyone here is probably interested in improving the world and has some kind of altruism, some selflessness, which is great. Sadly, we can't solve all of these problems at once, and so we have to pick what we're going to try and work on. And in the effective altruism community, we're trying to work out how we can pick the problems to solve, how we can apply ourselves in the best way, help as many people as possible, as much as possible. So I'll tell a little story about a guy called Greg. This is a true story, and how he wanted to help the world and how his views changed the more he learned. So Greg Lewis, I'm going to read this from the script because I can't remember it all, I'm afraid. He grew up in the UK. He decided he wanted to be a doctor. And I thought this when I was younger. He had the thought process that I'm good at science, and I want to do good. Doctors are good at science. I want to do good, so I'll be a doctor. And it was quite a simple, easy thing to do. And I think we probably all know medics who were very intelligent and very selfless and thought, well, I'll just be a doctor. This makes a lot of sense. But over the years, he became less and less certain that being a doctor was really the right choice and the most effective thing he could be doing. He says that he remembers having a conversation with another doctor who worked in pediatrics, who said that they don't ever feel like they're saving lives, because if they weren't there, then the doctor down the hall would do the same thing. So Greg found this troubling and decided to look into it. He decided he wanted his career to be based on doing good, and wanted to work out how much good a doctor does. And so he ended up doing a PhD in research, and came to the conclusion that if you become a doctor, you will save on average 6 lives in your career that wouldn't have otherwise been saved, which is like pretty cool, I think. If any of us were able to save 1 life in our kind of career or our lifetime, I think we'd be pretty excited about that. It would be a very memorable thing. And doctors save 6. So that's pretty awesome. But Greg kind of wanted to do more and wanted to save as many lives as he could. So he did some research into how else he could do things. And he came across an organisation called Giving What We Can, which I think are a super interesting one. And what they do is they do research into charities, and they try and evaluate how effective these charities are and what these charities are actually doing. And so one of the examples of what Giving What We Can do is they've analysed a charity called the Against Malaria Foundation. Some of you might have heard of this, and what they do is they distribute insecticide-treated bed nets for like as low a cost as possible to try and stop malaria and try and save lives. Does anyone have an estimate of how much you think you would have to donate to the Against Malaria Foundation to save a life? Shout out, put your hand up, whatever.
£1.
£1. £1 to save a life. Anyone higher?
£5.
Lot more than that.
Yeah,
More
like,
than
I
that.
don't know, £200.
£500.
Okay. Any other thoughts? It's actually £4,000, which feels like quite a lot. But I think when we look at it in a slightly different light, it's maybe less than we think. I'm going to do some like mental maths here, so let's try and follow along. I'll try and follow along with my own maths. So if you earn £20,000 over your career, every year for the rest of your life, and you do this for 40 years, then you're getting £20,000 times 40, which would be £800,000. If you were to donate 1% of your income, which is like pretty minimal, I think. I don't know about you, but I think I could donate 1% of my income and I not really notice a difference. That's maybe like one beer less a week, I don't know. You'd be donating £8,000 over the course of your career, which is 2 lives. And I think that's something that is pretty big. And if we look at the doctor example, Greg Lewis worked out that you save 6 lives as a doctor. And so maybe if you were to earn money and donate that, and you're pursuing jobs that are higher earning purely to donate, you would actually be saving more lives. And so what Greg Lewis decided to do is kind of share these ideas with people and work with one of these organisations like Giving What We Can. So that's kind of an example of how people in the effective altruism community prioritise what they're doing and try and work out how to do it as effectively as possible. So I want to talk about one of the things that's really important in effective altruism, which is cause neutrality. So I think lots of people, myself included, have affiliation to certain causes. If you have a parent or family member with a certain illness or disease, you might be more wanting to help that disease. For example, I used to have like a bit of a skin condition, and if I was to like run a marathon or something, my first instinct would be, oh, like I'll raise money to like help people who have the same skin condition as me. And this makes a lot of sense, and I think this is how a lot of people get into charity. But one of the things that we try and do in effective altruism is not have a cause that we're particularly affiliated with, because some causes we can help much more than others. And if we are already affiliated to a certain cause, then it might stop us working out a different place that we could do much more good. Yeah. So what leads on from this is cause prioritization, which is one of the things that I'll talk about in terms of what we do at St Andrews. And this is the idea that we want to work out the best ways in which we as individuals can apply our skills to the world and help the world. So we want to first work out which causes we think are able to be helped the most, and we want to work out how we can apply ourselves to those causes. So me, I'm not very STEM based, I'm not very good at maths. I think I'm better at like speaking to people and building relationships, and so I want to like try and utilize this. And so maybe there are certain causes that would be great to have people helping, but my skills don't suit it, and so I need to work out where I would be the most useful, basically. Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit now about the kind of tools of effective altruism and how people work out the ways in which we can do more good. Just for reference, I think the tools will take like 5 to 10 minutes. What's being done now will take like 5 to 10 minutes, and then how to get involved will take like 5 minutes. So it'll probably finish in like half an hour or so, maybe less. And then we'll have some time for questions at the end as well. Yeah, so one of the things that we do, kind of keeping in line with cause neutrality, is look for problems everywhere. I think that it's pretty obvious that people matter equally across the world. We don't have any particular affiliation to kind of one type of person or another. But it is the case that some people we can help much more than others. And so people who are living in developing countries, who are less well off than us, we can often help them much more than we can help people in the UK. And so we try and find the place where we can help people the most and act there, as opposed to zooming in on one area and then choosing who to help in a way. We kind of use evidence and reason to compare impact. So one of the things that we use to try and do this is a notion called qualies, which I think is quite interesting. Does anybody know what qualies are already?
Does that stand for quality adjusted life years?
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to define that for us?
I'd love to, because it was in my medical lectures, but I can't remember much
about it. Anybody else remember what it means or know what it means? No, okay. I'm just conscious that I'm talking a lot and I don't want to like make you bored of my voice. So quality adjusted life year is one quali is worth a whole year of like a really good life. And 0.5 qualities would be worth a year where your life is like half as good, or half a year where your life is great. And so we use things like qualities to try and work out how many lives are being saved, how much we're helping people's lives, how much we're improving it. I think this is a thing that doctors do. I know my flatmate, a doctor, has said that doctors can make decisions based on qualities. And this is something that people in the effective altruism community do as well. But there are some issues with this, which maybe we can talk about in the Q&A. This is one of the most difficult things, I think, about effective altruism, and it's probably the thing that a lot of people disagree with the most. And so I think it's worth like going into a little bit of detail. When we help people, we donate our money, we donate our time, our careers, we are always neglecting somebody else. And when we're making decisions about things like qualities and kind of quantifying people, there can be a little bit of an issue in terms of we're actively saying this group of people is more worthy of our help than this other group of people. And that can feel a little bit weird. And when you kind of donate money to a charity, you might have a few charities in mind and you don't give money to another charity and you feel like, oh, that's sad, like I'm not helping these people as much as I could have, etc. But one of the ways I've had it explained to me, which is what I put up here, is that we can't avoid making this choice, and every time we do try and help, we are always going to neglect somebody else. And so either we can kind of go, we can not think about this issue, and we can go, well, I'm just going to help a cause that I believe in, or I'm going to like not think about the people I'm not helping, I'm only going to think about the people I am helping. But this doesn't change the fact that you are not helping some people. And so being aware of this, and consciously going, okay, I am neglecting some people, but I'm pretty confident that I'm helping the people who I can help the most, I think is quite empowering. And it allows you to feel confident that you're doing as much as you can. Yeah, does anybody have any thoughts on that actually? That kind of issue of like neglecting certain people or not? No, okay. So this is one of the things, like qualities, that we use to kind of work out which causes are the most worthy of our time. So the scale is like the size of the problem and how much we can help. So this is like, how much good could we do? If we were to solve hair loss, this would do less good than solving cancer. So that's kind of the obvious example. So neglecting this is how many people are working on this problem at the moment. And the thinking here is that the less people that are working on something, if you add one additional person, you'll have more of an impact than if there are loads of people already working on it. So an example could be, I don't know, there are lots of people working on climate change. There are not that many people working on improving farmed animal welfare. And so looking just about neglecting this farmed animal welfare would like win that one. But perhaps the climate change issue has like a bigger scale and is of bigger size. And then the last one is tractability, which is how likely are we to be able to solve this. So we think, how big is the problem, how many people are already working on it, and how likely am I to be able to contribute to it. And that's one of the ways in which we try and work out where to put our time. Some little diagrams and annotation. So what's being done now? So I'm going to just briefly talk about 3 of the kind of causes that people are working on at the moment. But I think it's important to state that we, kind of people in the effective altruism community disagree massively about which causes should be worked on. There are people who think that animal welfare is super important. There are people that think it's like absolutely ridiculous. There are people that work on climate change. I think this is like the most obvious thing that we should be doing. And there are people that think that that's not worth our time. I'm just going to talk about a couple of the causes, but effective altruism doesn't have one cause, it is cause neutral. People disagree about which is the best one to be working on. And even I think people within St Andrews disagree on this. Yeah. So global poverty is the kind of obvious one. It's the examples that I've used today. The size of this problem is pretty big. Thousands of people are dying every year, millions of people, I would assume. It's pretty easy to solve. These issues of kind of not having access to water and medicine, it's pretty obvious how we can do that. And in terms of like the neglectedness, whilst there are lots of people working on it there, isn't enough money in the global poverty seed that's going towards efficient causes. So this is like, it takes all of these categories quite well. So some of the organisations working on this are the Against Malaria Foundation that we were talking about with the bed nets, GiveWell, who were doing estimates on different charities working out which ones are the most effective, and there are a couple of others there as well. Farm animal suffering is another one. So when we're looking for problems everywhere, some people extend this to animals as well. And the conditions that animals have when they're in factory farms can be pretty awful. And this is like a massive problem because I think 80 billion land mammals a year are killed in the world, which is like 10 times the population of the Earth. In terms of humans, a lot of these animals will suffer very badly in factory farms, and there are very few people working on this issue. This is like, I think, a really interesting graphic here, which is about money donated to different charities, and it's kind of highlighting that some animals are prioritized over others, maybe not for good reason. So this is the number of animals used and killed in like farms, shelters, labs, and for clothing. And you can see that the massive majority is in farms. There's kind of a big push, I think about 5 years ago, for kind of ethical use of animals in like labs and clothing. But when we look at the amount of animals that are killed in farms, it's much bigger. And then when we look at the money donated, most of this, more than half, is going to animal shelters. But shelters make up like a tiny proportion of the amount of deaths for animals. So by this metric, it would suggest that we should be trying to donate a lot more money towards farm animal welfare, which is this little box here. So this is another cause that people are working on. This is the last cause I'll talk about before I discuss what we do in St Andrews. So trying to combat global catastrophic threats. This could be something like a climate change disaster. This could be something like artificial intelligence causing severe issues in the world. It could be something like a pandemic similar to COVID, but maybe slightly more disastrous. And we're trying to kind of predict when these are going to happen, how they're going to happen, and try and combat them. And the thinking here is that there are potentially billions and billions and billions of people that will live in the future who, as quality of life continues to improve by almost every metric, by the, I think it's called the HLI, is that right? Anybody know what I'm talking about here?
World Happiness Index?
Yeah, that's it. By that index, people's lives are improving. There are going to be billions of people that are going to live in the future. And so a lot of people in the effective altruism community are trying to work out the best ways to safeguard that future and make sure that we don't kind of go extinct through something like a pandemic or maybe climate change or something like this. Yeah, so these are some of the institutes that are working on this. And most of the things being done at the moment is in research, so trying to work out what's going to happen and how we can help. There isn't too much going on in terms of actually doing things right now, because we are unsure as to how we prevent pandemics. We're unsure about how to kind of make sure AI is as safe as possible. But this is one of the things that a lot of people are working on. Yeah, these are some other cause areas. I'll just give you a second to read through those. And also, this isn't an exclusive list of everything. There's lots of things that people in the effective altruism community work on that like isn't up here. But I'll let you just read those for a sec. So I'm just going to talk now about what we do in St Andrews and what the kind of plan is for the upcoming semester. So one of the things that we think is the best way, we being the effective altruism community as well, not just kind of me and the people in St Andrews, is that our career is probably the best way we can help the world. Some of you in here maybe are intending to use your career to try and improve the world. That might be working for a startup, it might be working for an organisation, an NGO, something like this. It might be doing research, it might be working on climate change, all of these different things. And we want to equip people with the tools that they need to A, work out which career is best for them in terms of how effective it's going to be and how effective they're going to be in that career. And then we want to help people get into these careers. And so the first step for this is an 8-week discussion program that we run in St Andrews. And each week you will have a reading or a video that would be based on a kind of a different way of doing good, a different approach to improving the world, and a different course. So there'll be a week on animal welfare, there'll be a week on artificial intelligence, there'll be half a week on climate change and things like this. And so you'll get together in a group, you'll discuss these ideas, and then at the end of that 8 weeks, we will have kind of a one-to-one meeting. It will be with me or one of the other committee members who's been involved in effective altruism for a while, and that'll be looking at kind of the next steps you can take to kind of start doing careerish things. We'll then kind of work on internship applications together. We'll have career workshops. We'll be trying to connect you to people who are currently working on these ideas. I've got a big Excel spreadsheet of all the people I've met in the effective altruism community over the last kind of couple of years, with their emails, and all of them are happy to be contacted. So I want to put you in contact with these people and try to help you get into a career that is going to hopefully do good in the world. If that 8-week discussion program sounds like too much for you, we will be having kind of one-off workshops. These will usually be at the weekend, and there'll be mini kind of talks like this, workshops, sessions on different things. I think these are going to be great. I'm really excited about them. But I think if effective altruism and these ideas are things that you're interested in, I'd really strongly direct you to the discussion program, because this is the best way. I think that you can learn about it, engage with other people, and hear some different points of view. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything from me. Thank you all for coming. And I'll be here for the next, half an hour, I guess, if anybody wants to chat, kind of individually. But yeah, thank you very much.